Welcome to all of you. This is a presentation on the topic Introduction to Computer System. This is unit 1st of the book Information Practices for the students of class 11, and this video is presented by me, that is Shilpi Rani, PGTIT at Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya, Guntur, Andhra Pradesh. So let's begin this topic. So in this video we will go through the following contents. First topic will be Introduction to Computer System. So inside this we will learn about what is computer and what is computer system. Then after that, what are the different components of a computer system, like input device, output device, CPU. We will learn about this. Then second topic we will go through the history of the computer. Then third topic is about computer memory. What is memory units? Then different type of memory like primary memory, cache memory, secondary memory. Then these topics we will cover, like what is data capturing, data storage, data retrieval, data deletion, data recovery. After that we will cover software, means what is software, what is the need of software. Then different type of software like system software, application software, and one more category is there like proprietary software and free and open source software. So all these topics we will cover in this session. So let's begin our topic. First is Introduction to Computer. So what is computer? Students, we simply know that a computer is an electronic device that can be programmed to accept input, and it processes the input according to the programs and the algorithms, and it generates the desired output or information. So what is data? What is the difference between data and information? Student, data is a raw facts and figure which have no meaning and it is useless. But when it is processed by the computer, then an information is generated, and information is a useful facts and figure for a person or for a particular organization. Then second is, what is computer system? So a computer with additional hardware and software, together it is called a computer system. If we talk about, then a computer system, it is a primarily comprised of 4 components. One is central processing unit, also known as CPU, memory, input output devices, and storage devices. All these components function together as a single unit to deliver the desired output, and all these 4 components make a computer systems. Here we can see the block diagram of a computer system. It is an input device, here is output device, then it is a central processing unit, and here is secondary storage device. Inside central processing unit there are 2 subunits, control unit and arithmetic logic unit. And this primary memory, this is actually a part of memory component, but because this primary memory is mainly embedded in the CPU IC, that's why it is shown in the block here. Here the directed line represent the flow of data and signal between the different components. Students, a computer comes in various forms and sizes. It can be vary from a high-end server to a personal desktop, laptop, tablet computer or smartphones. Now we will study different components of a computer system one by one in brief. First is central processing unit. So what is central processing unit? It is an electronic circuit of computer that carries out the actual processing, and it is usually referred as brain of computer. It is also known as processor. Physically, CPU can be placed on one or more microchips. It is called integrated circuits or IC. The IC is made up of semiconductor materials. The CPU is given instruction and data through the program. The CPU then fetches the program and data from the memory and perform arithmetic and logical operation as per the given instructions and stores the result back to the memory. While processing, the CPU stores data as well as instruction into the local memory, and that local memory is called register. It is also one component inside the central processing architecture. Registers are part of CPU chip and they are limited in size and number. Different registers are used for storing data, instructions and intermediate results. Other than this register component, CPU has two main components. One is arithmetic logic unit, also known as ALU, and second is control unit, also known as CPU. ALU performs all arithmetic and logical operations that need to be done as per the instruction in the program, and control units control sequential instructions execution, interprets instructions and guide data flow through the computer memory, ALU, input or output devices. CPU is also known as microprocessor. Here you can see in desktop system we see this type of box. This type of box is known as CPU, and in laptop one microchip is there and it is embedded on the ICs. Next is input devices. So what is input devices? The device through which control signals are sent to the computer. They are termed as input devices. The devices convert the input data into digital form that is accepted by the computer system. Some examples of input devices are keyboard, mouse, scanner, touch screen and many more are there. Specially designed braille keyboards are also available to help visually impaired candidates for entering data into a computer. And besides this, we can now enter data through our voice. For example, when we use Google voice search to search the web, where we can input the search string through our voice. Data entered through the input device, it is temporarily stored in the main memory, and that main memory is also called RAM of the computer system. We will study about this main memory or RAM just after some minutes in this session. Next component is output devices. The device that receives data from computer system for display or physical production is called output devices. Output device converts digital information into human understandable form. Examples of output device are monitor, speaker, printer, 3D printer, headphones, projector and many more are there. A braille display monitor is useful for visually challenged person to understand the textual output generated by computers. A printer is most commonly used device to get output in physical or hard copy form. Printers are of three types: inkjet, laserjet and dot matrix. But nowadays there is a new type of printer, it is called 3D printer. 3D printer is used to build physical replica of digital 3D design. These printers are being used in manufacturing industries to create prototypes of products. Their usage is also being explored in medical field, particularly for developing body organs. So next topic is evolution of computer, that is history of computer we will study. So students, as we know that from a simple calculator to modern day powerful data processor, all the computing devices, they have evolved in a very relatively short span of time. So we will study the history of computer or evolution of computer by this timeline in brief. So if we have to start, we can start this development from the 500 BC. In 500 BC, abacus was invented. So what was abacus? Abacus, it was a mechanical device that is capable of doing simple arithmetic calculations only. Then in 1642, a Pascaline machine was invented. Blaise Pascal invented a mechanical calculator, and that is known as Pascaline calculator, to do addition and subtraction of two numbers directly and multiplication and division through repeated addition and subtraction. Then in 1834, analytical engine was invented by Charles Babbage. It was computing device for inputting, processing, storing and displaying the output, which is considered to form the basis of modern computer. That's why this Charles Babbage is known as father of computer. Then in 1890, tabulating machine was discovered by Hermann Hollerith. It is a tabulating machine for summarizing the data stored on the punched card. It is considered to be first step towards programming. Then in 1937, Turing machine was discovered. The Turing machine concept was a general purpose programmable machine that was capable of solving any problem by executing the program stored on punched card. Then in 1945, John von Neumann introduced the concept of stored program computer, which was capable of storing data as well as program in the memory. The EDVAC and ENIAC computer were developed based on this concept. Then in 1947, vacuum tubes were replaced by transistors. It developed at Bell Labs using semiconductor materials. Then in 1970s, integrated chip is discovered, which is a silicon chip which contains entire electronic circuit on a very small area. The size of computer has drastically reduced because of ICs. Then during this 1970s, large scale integration, that is LSI, of electronic circuits allowed integration of complete CPU on a single chip, and it is known as microprocessor. Then Moore's law predicts exponential growth in number of transistors that could be assembled in a single microchip. In 1980s, the processing power of computer increased exponentially by integrating around 3 million components on a small sized chip, and it is known as very large scale integration, that is VLSI. Then further advancement in technology has made it flexible to fabricate high density of transistor and other components on a single IC, and it is called known as super large scale integration, that is SLSI. After that, IBM introduced its first personal computer for the home user in 1981, and Apple introduced Macintosh machines in 1984. Then the popularity of PC, it is surged by introduction of graphical user interface GUI based operating system by Microsoft and others in place of computer, which is only command line interface like Unix and DOS. Then in around 1990s, the growth of World Wide Web further accelerated mass usage of computer, and thereafter computers have become an indispensable part of everyday life. Further, with the introduction of laptops, personal computing was made portable to a great extent, and this was followed by smartphones, tablets, and other personal digital assistants. These devices has leveraged the technological advancement in the processor miniaturization, faster memory, high-speed data, and connectivity mechanism. And the next wave of computing device includes wearable gadgets such as smartwatch, smart lens, headbands, headphones, and many more. Further, smart appliances, they are becoming the part of Internet of Things by leveraging the power of artificial intelligence. So this was the brief history of the computer, that how from an abacus that was discovered in 500 BC and up to now it is in 2020, we have developed the computing device from such a large size to a wearable gadgets. So next topic we will do is computer memory. So why the computer needs memory? A computer system needs memory to store the data and the instructions for processing. So that's why computer needs a memory. It is same as a human being needs memory to store his past and present and the learning which he learn day by day. Then we will talk about unit of computer memory. A computer system uses binary numbers to store and process the data. The binary digits are 0 and 1, which are basic units of memory, and that is called bits. Further, these bits are grouped together to form word. A 4-bit word is called nibble. For example, you can see this 1 and 0, this makes bits, and the 4 bits like 1001, 1010 and many more, this 4 bits word make a nibble. Then 2 nibble words. 2 nibbles means 8 bits, because one nibble is 4 bits, then 2 nibble is 8 bits word is called byte. For example, you can see this 8 bits words, it is called byte. Like any other standard units, bytes are grouped together to make bigger chunks or units of memory. Here in this table you can see the bigger chunks or units of memory like kilobyte. 1024 bytes make 1 kilobyte. Then 1024 kilobytes make 1 megabyte. Then 1024 megabytes make 1 gigabyte. Then 1024 gigabytes made 1 terabyte. And petabyte, exabyte, zettabyte and yottabyte are also there. Next is types of memory. So computer have two type of memory, primary memory and secondary memory. So we will discuss about these types of memory one by one. First is primary memory. The primary memory is essential component of computer systems. Program and data are loaded into primary memory before processing. The CPU interacts directly with primary memory to perform read and write operations. Primary memory is of two types: random access memory, also known as RAM, and second is read-only memory, also known as ROM. So we will discuss about these two types of primary memory. First is RAM. RAM is a volatile memory, that is, as long as the power is supplied to the computer, it retains data in it. But as soon as power supply is turned off, all contents of RAM are wiped off. So it is used to store data temporarily while computer is working. Whenever computer is started or a software application is launched, the required program and data are loaded into RAM for processing. So RAM is usually referred as main memory. It is faster than secondary memory or storage devices. Then second memory is ROM. ROM is non-volatile memory, means its contents are not lost even when power is turned off. It is used as a small but faster permanent storage for contents which are rarely changed. For example, the startup program, which is also called as bootloader, that loads the operating system into RAM, is stored in ROM. Then next another type of memory is cache memory. See student, RAM is faster than secondary storage, but this RAM is not as fast as computer processor, that is CPU. So because of RAM, a CPU have to slow down. So to speed up the operation of the CPU, a very high speed memory is placed between CPU and the primary memory, that is known as cache memory. So what the cache memory do? Its place is between the CPU and the primary memory. Here I can show you in the block diagram of the computer to make it clear. See, this is the CPU made up of control unit and arithmetic logic unit, and here it is a primary memory. But the primary memory speed is not as fast as this control unit or CPU, so CPU has to slow down. If CPU slows down, then our computer will perform slow. That's why a very fast memory is placed between these two components, that is primary memory and CPU, to speed up the operation of the control unit, and that memory is known as cache memory. Now how the cache memory perform the faster operation? It stores the copies of data from frequently accessed primary memory location, that is the data which is in frequent used. It stores the copy of that data in cache memory, thus reducing the average time required to access the data from the primary memory. When the CPU needs to access memory, it first examines the cache memory. In case the requirement is met, it is read from the cache. Otherwise, the primary memory is accessed. Then another type of memory is secondary memory. So computer have this primary memory and cache memory, then what is the need of this secondary memory? See students, primary memory has limited storage capacity and it is either RAM is volatile, or ROM. ROM is read only and has small storage. Thus a computer system needs an auxiliary or secondary memory to permanently store the data or instructions for the future use. The secondary memory is non-volatile and has larger storage capacity than primary memory. It is slower and cheaper than main memory. Secondary memory cannot be accessed directly by the CPU. Contents of secondary memory need to be first brought into the main memory for the CPU to access. Examples of secondary memory include hard disk drive, also known as HDD, CD, DVD, memory cards, and many more. Here you can see this is hard disk, CD, DVD, memory cards, tape drive, and many more. These days secondary storage device like SSD, solid state drive, here you can see the picture, which support very fast data transfer speed as compared to earlier HD. And the data transfer between computers have become easier and simpler due to the availability of small sized and portable flash or pen drives. Here you can see the pen drives. So these all makes the secondary memory of the computer. Next topic we will understand some terms like what is data capturing, what is data storage, and what is data retrieval. So first is data capturing. Data capturing involves the process of gathering data from different sources in digital form. This process is known as data capturing. Data may be captured using keyboard, barcode reader. It is used at shopping outlets, remote sensors, Earth orbiting satellites, comments and posts over multiple social media are also captured as data. Sometimes heterogeneity among data sources make data capturing it is complex task. Next topic is data storage. It is the process of storing the captured data for processing later. That is known as data storage. Nowadays, data is being produced at very high rate, and therefore data storage has become a challenging task. However, the decrease in cost of digital storage device has helped in simplifying this task. Now data keeps on increasing with time. Hence, storage device also required to be upgraded periodically. In large organization, computer with large and faster storage called data servers are deployed to store vast amount of data. Such dedicated computers help in processing data efficiently. However, the cost both of hardware and software or setting up data server as well as their maintenance is high, especially for small organization or startups. The next topic is data retrieval. Data retrieval involves fetching data from the storage devices for its processing as per user requirement. As database grows, the challenges involved in search and retrieval of the data in acceptable time also increases. Minimizing data access time is crucial for faster data processing. Next is we will understand what is data deletion and how we can recover the deleted data. What is the logic behind this? So one of the biggest threats associated with digital data is its deletion. The storage device can malfunction or crash down, resulting in deletion of the stored data. Or user can accidentally erase the data from the storage device, or hacker or a malware can delete the digital data intentionally. Deleting digital stored data means changing the details of data at bit level, which can be very time consuming. Therefore, when any data is simply deleted, its address entry is marked as free and the much space is shown as empty to the user without actually deleting the data. Actually student, what happen when we delete some data or some file, then computer do not have a eraser to just go to that memory address and erase everything. What it do, it just go to that memory address of that file and simply mark it that it is a free space now. It do not delete the data, it just marked it as free space. Now if another memory space is required, then that memory is overwritten. In case data gets deleted accidentally or corrupted, then there is a need to recover the data, and that recovery of data is only possible if the contents or memory space marked as deleted, as it has not been overwritten by some other data. So if that memory address is not overwritten by some other data and it is only marked as deleted space, then we can recover that deleted data by using data recovery software. So data recovery is the process of retrieving deleted, corrupted or lost data from secondary storage devices. So I think these topics are clear that how we can recover the deleted data. It's a simple logic. While we delete the data, simply its address is marked as free space and the data is not deleted. Until and unless the data is not overwritten or that memory address is not overwritten, we can recover that data using a recovery software. Now there are usually two security concerns associated with data. One is its deletion by some unauthorized person or software. This concern can be avoided by limiting access to computer system and using passwords for user accounts and files wherever possible. There is also an option for encrypting files to protect them from unwanted modification. The other concern is unwanted recovery of data by unauthorized user or software. Many a times when we discard our old and broken malfunctioning storage devices without taking care to delete the data, we just throw our old CDs or hard drives or magnetic drives without deleting our data. We assume that the contents of deleted files are permanently removed. However, if these devices falls into the hands of mischief mongers, then they can easily recover the data from such devices, and this can pose a threat to the data confidentiality. This concern can be mitigated by using proper tools to delete the or shred data before disposing of any old or faulty storage devices. The next topic we will study about software. So now first we will understand what is software. So software is a set of instructions and data that makes hardware functional to complete the desired task. It is that component of computer system which cannot be touched or viewed physically. The computer software and hardware complete any task together. Some examples of software that we see in our daily life include operating systems like Ubuntu, Windows 7 or 10, or word processing tools like LibreOffice, Writer, Microsoft Word, video player like VLC Media Player, photo editor software like Paint or LibreOffice Draw, and many more softwares are there. A document or image stored on hard disk or pen drive, it is referred as soft copy. Once it is printed, the document and image, it is known as hard copy. So we got what is the software. It is simply the set of instructions or algorithm to perform a particular operation, that is known as software. Next, what is the need of software? The sole purpose of software is to make computer hardware useful and operational. A software knows how to make different hardware components of a computer work and communicate with each other as well as with the end user. Simply, students, you have to understand software acts as interface between the user and the hardware. Here you can understand with a block diagram that here you can see the hardware is lying at the lower layer. Then with this hardware the system software interacts. Now the system software is of three types. Basically, device driver software, which is a type of system software. It interacts with a particular device or hardware. It controls and manages a particular device or hardware, and these device driver software are commanded by or controlled by operating system. The operating system can be Windows 7, Ubuntu and many more. And this operating system software is maintained by system utilities software, and these three type of software make a system software. Now above the system software, many application software and programming tools work, and with this application software and programming tools the user interacts with the user interface. This application and programming tools software, it can be of two types. One is proprietary software and free software, and another type is free and open source software. So with this block diagram you can understand how a user can interact with the computer. So basically this software acts as interface between the user and the hardware, because this hardware cannot work by its own. A software, which is the instructions, it makes the hardware to work. Okay, so from here we will study what is the types of software. So depending upon the mode of interaction with the hardware and the functions to be performed, software can be broadly classified into two categories. One is system software. You can see system software which directly interacts with the hardware, and the another is application software which acts as interface between the user and the system software. So basically user interact with the application software, and the application software works on above the system software. Now we will study one by one these two kinds. So first is system software. The software that provides basic functionality to operate a computer by interacting directly with its hardware is termed as system software. The system software knows how to operate and use different hardware components of a computer. It provides service directly to the end user or to some other software. Examples of system software, it have three types: operating system, system utilities and device drivers. We will study one by one in brief the types of system software. First is operating system. So operating system is a system software that operates the computer. An operating system is most basic system software without which other software cannot work. The operating systems manage other application program and provides access and security to the user of the system. The examples of popular operating systems are Windows, Linux, Macintosh, Ubuntu, Fedora, Android, iOS and many more are there. Next we will know about what is the system utilities software. The software used for these system utilities software used for maintenance and configuration of computer system. Some system utilities are shipped with the operating system. For example, disk defragmentation tool, formatting utility or restore utility. These services are already come with the operating systems. But another set of utilities that are not shipped with the operating system but are required to improve the performance of the systems are such as antivirus software, disk cleaner tool, disk compression software, and many more are there. So basically the utilities software is used for maintenance and configuration of the computer system. And the third type of system software is device drivers. The purpose of device driver is to ensure proper functioning of a particular device. The device driver acts as interface between the device and the operating system. It provides required service by hiding the details of operations performed at hardware level of the device. So particularly we can understand in 1 and 2 lines that this device driver software manages each device. That means for each input or output device we have a particular device driver software. Then this device driver software perform the operation and help the operating system. This operating system software is maintained and configured by the system utilities software. And these three software, that is system utilities, device driver and the operating system, make the systems software. The next we will study about the another type of software, that is application software. Now different user needs computer system for different purpose depending upon their requirement. Hence a new category of software is needed to cater to different requirements of the end user. This specific software that works on the top of the system software is termed as application software. There are two broad categories of application software. One is general purpose software, another is customized application software. We will study about both types one by one. First is general purpose software. The application software developed for generic application to cater to a bigger audience in general are called general purpose software. Such ready-made application software can be used by end user as per their requirement. The example of general purpose software are spreadsheet tools. LibreOffice calculator can be used by any computer user to do calculation or to create account sheet. Adobe Photoshop, GIMP, Mozilla web browser, iTunes, these all falls in the category of general purpose software. So in whole we can understand this general purpose software, they are made for the general need and it can be used by a general user. Next is customized software. These are custom or tailor-made application software that are developed to meet the requirement of a specific organization or an individual. Some example of user-defined software includes website, school management software, accounting software and many more. So in simple words, this customized software, it is developed with a aim of meeting the user requirement of a particular organization. Next category of software is proprietary software, freeware, and the second is free and open source software. So we will study in brief one by one these. Developers of some software allow public to to freely use their software along with the source code with an aim to improve further with each other's help, and such software is known as free and open source software. For example, the source code of operating system Ubuntu is freely accessible for anyone with the required knowledge to improve and add new functionality. Some other examples of free and open source software include Python, LibreOffice, OpenOffice, Mozilla Firefox, and many more are there. So mainly this free and open source software is a category of software that is available to the public with their source code. Next category is freeware. The software which is freely available for the use but source code may not be available, that is called freeware software. Examples of freeware are Skype, Adobe Reader. These software are freely available but its source code is not available. But in free and open source source code is also available. We cannot say it is free or not, but its source code is publicly available with an aim to improve in its development. And the last category of software is when software is used to be purchased from the vendor who has copyright of the software. Then the category of software is known as proprietary software. That means a software which we have to purchase by accepting the license, or some software vendor have the copyright on software. That software is known as proprietary software. Examples of proprietary software are Microsoft Windows, Tally, Quickhill, and many more are there. So these three categories of software we understand in this slide. What is free and open source software? Whose source code is publicly available. It is free or not free, it depends. Next category of software is freeware. Software which is freely available but its source code is not available. And the last category is proprietary software, means the software which we have to purchase from the vendor who have the copyright of that software. That software is called proprietary software. For example, Microsoft Windows, Tally, Quickhill, and many more are there. So we have completed our all topics, and this is the whole topic in the introduction to the computer system. So I hope that you understand each topic in this session. Thank you here so much.